What is up, everybody? Welcome to another NBA Rundown, courtesy of Run Pure Sports and Run Pure Bets. Please like and subscribe the video. And I am so excited today. Making his NBA Rundown debut is Hoop. What's up, man? Welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Doing well. Happy to be on. Like I said, before we hopped on, the kids are finally back to school. There's been a lot of homeschooling and me being a teacher, which didn't work out so well for me or the kids. So now they're back to school. Now I have more time, and I plan on hopping on more often. So definitely looking forward to it.
Well, I love it. I think we've been doing a great job of blending the bet side and the DFS
Hmm.
side here on the show because I think that they go hand in hand. And if you understand, the totals, the spreads, the potential blowouts, it can help you making your lineups and vice versa. If you understand how to make a lineup, I think you can jump over and try to identify some of these games that we should be betting on. So why don't we get right into it? And we'll start with the Dallas Mavericks, who are playing much better of late, heading down to take on the Orlando Magic, who, to me, they've been like kind of a tough team to cap. You want to count them out with all their injuries, but they play hard and they're well coached. So Orlando's catching 6.5 at home, a total of 221. Hoop, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, this is it's kind of a tough one because the Mavericks this season overall have been somewhat of a disappointment. I mean, a lot of people kind of thought that they'd be not necessarily contending in the West, but putting up a better fight, and they really haven't shown that. They did beat the Nets pretty handily last time out, but a lot of inconsistency, and they've been a tough team to really peg in terms of picking the spread, or even for DFS purposes. For DFS purposes, Luka is always a phenomenal play, but he's had a lot of ups and downs throughout the season in terms of his performance. For me in this spot here, I'd probably lean the Magic with the 6.5, getting a little bit healthier. The guys are finally starting to come back a little bit. I'd probably lean the Magic plus the 6.5. But, it's not a game I feel really, really good about. It's just kind of a lean, I'd say, more so than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, we saw favorites just just run rampant last night. I don't know if we're going to see that tonight. Tonight could be the return of the dogs. And you talked about some struggles with
Yeah.
Dallas, and I think they put a lot, into the Porzingis investment. And I don't think that necessarily he's paid off.
Yeah.
And I think he's got a tough matchup tonight. I don't know if he'll be given Vukovic, but I think Vukovic could score on him. Is there any way that Vukovic makes it into your lineup here at 10-2, or would you rather just spend the extra 500 and grab Luca?
Yeah, I'm not gonna. I mean, I love Vucevic. I love playing him when I can, but he's a guy that I'm very price sensitive about when I do play him. When he gets too close to these top tier guys, by top tier guys, I'm talking Luca, I'm talking James Harden, Embiid, Giannis. When he starts getting close to, when his price starts getting close to those guys, I just tend to stay away, and that's kind of where it's at right now. He's rightfully so. He's been performing very well fantasy wise, but I can't play him over guys like Luca tonight. I can't play him over James Harden tonight. I can't play him over Damian Lillard tonight. Like all the other stars on the slate, Jokic, another guy that's in a really good spot tonight. I just can't click his name over any of those other guys. On the Dallas side, obviously Luca is a phenomenal play. I think he's firmly in the conversation to be the guy or the one of the two guys that you spend up for in your DFS lineups tonight. We just got to see how this value shakes out. We have a lot of injury news. We're waiting on the Pacer situation if Brogdon's going to play. In Philadelphia, we have to see if Embiid's going to play. If Embiid sits, obviously a plethora of guys get a huge, huge boost. So, as of now, I'm probably, I'm not going to play Vucevic, and Luka's in the conversation, but just gotta see this injury news.
Right now, the total is 221. Obviously, when we're looking for the DFS teams, we're looking for games that we originally pegged to go over. Did you have a lean on the over or the under here?
Not strongly. I mean, over and unders are always pretty tough for me. I just they seem like very hard to predict unless you get something early. If you get something early on in the day or early on in the morning that is wrong and should be a different direction. Yeah, but for me, no strong lean here. I mean, I think 221 seems pretty fair. I mean, I don't think that's off by any way, shape, or form. So I'm gonna be off the total. And like I said, if I'm going anywhere in this game, it would be a slight lean to the Magic in terms of sports betting.
Yeah, I think I would lean towards the Magic 6.5, but it's not my favorite play
Yeah.
on the slate. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with passing on this game in general for your betting purposes or as far as making a lineup. I think there could be some other studs that you would target. In this next game, it could be one of the ones that we would be targeting. And you mentioned it earlier with the Embiid injury, but that's the Indiana Pacers, who have been such a tough team for me to cap. I was really high on them
Yeah.
earlier in the year, but they're missing that wing depth so much. And as the season's gone on, the teams have kind of figured them out. If you stop Sabonis, and you really put the onus on Brogdon, they can
Mhm.
they can have problems scoring, especially in crunch time. Now they're going against the Philadelphia team, who's been playing fantastic as of late. They're coming off that loss to Cleveland. Maybe that dials them in a bit. And we kind of just have to do this when we're doing this show so early in the morning. But I guess we'll just go ahead and cap it as if Embiid's going to play, and his price tag's 10-6.
Mhm.
If Embiid's in there, he usually traditionally does pretty well against Miles Turner, even though we consider Miles Turner to be one of the better defensive centers. Just for whatever reason, Embiid usually owns him. I would actually be looking towards laying the 4.5 and having Embiid be one of my guys that I pay up for tonight. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm in lockstep with you on the 76ers. If Embiid is in, I believe Tobias Harris is questionable too, but it sounds like he's going
Yeah.
to return and be good to. Yeah, he's officially questionable, but it sounds like he's definitely trending towards playing. I am definitely with you on the 76ers side. This Pacers team they've been a disappointment, like you said, and teams are starting to figure out what you got to do. I mean, you have to not limit Sabonis, but you got to slow him down a little bit. I mean, he's literally doing everything out on the court. And, the 76ers strike me as a team. They're just trending in the right direction, and they're smart enough on defense where they're going to put up a good battle, I think, for Sabonis. And then on the other end, I just don't think they have the answer to Embiid if he does play. Like you said, Miles Turner is a guy we think, maybe defensive-minded player. Embiid's on a different level right now. I mean, this is the best season he has had, just taking over games whenever the hell he wants to. So I really like Embiid here, and I'm definitely on the 76ers side too, assuming all these guys are in. And, I definitely think Harris is going to play. Embiid, it seems like he's truly 50-50, but, we're going to proceed and break this down as if he's in. And if he's in, I like him, and I like the 76ers side quite a bit.
Yeah, this is one of the games I'll definitely be watching your show this evening before I place the bet. I want Embiid in there, and I want Harris in there, right? I mean, I think that the loss to Cleveland showed how much he's been kind of making quiet contributions on this team, and I think that they were very smart to hire Doc Rivers. I know Doc Rivers does have, some things that people would like to criticize him for. But he got the most out of Harris here when he played with the Clippers and got his trade value that high, right? And so it's like you got Harris. He's on this bloated contract. You can't really move him. So what do? You bring in the coach that's going to get the most out of him, and now you make that contract so much more usable. And I think that we're seeing, the ramifications of that with how well that Philadelphia is doing this year, being 22-12, 17-15 against the spread. So, all right, we seem to be on the same there. The 223, I'm going to stay away from as well. It seems to be the right number. Now, we talked about the stars. Are there any scrubs that we'd be looking to in this game to fill our lineup out? Some lower price guys that you might be targeting?
Well, I mean, the one piece of news that's obviously very important for this game, but also for DFS purposes as well, is Brogdon.
Right.
And if he were to miss, we saw last game, TJ McConnell, he started and had a massive game. He's a guy that can contribute in all categories, and he did that. Put up I believe 45 fantasy points. Just got the news: Embiid and Harris are still questionable, so they're both officially questionable going into the slate tonight. McConnell, the price did come up though a little bit. He's 6-1 on FanDuel. On DK, just pulling this up right now. DK, he is 6-1 as well. So 6-1 on both sides. But like I said, if Brogdon's out, he's in a third 35-minute role, assuming the game stays close, and he contributes across the board. So if he's out, McConnell would get a big boost. Justin Holiday, McDermott would also get a big boost. I mean, those would be the three guys that I'm looking to if Brogdon were to sit. And then on the 76ers side, with Embiid, like I said, I think Harris does play, but I guess, they still have officially listed him as questionable. So, I mean, if by chance both those guys sit, for DFS purposes, you're loading up. You're loading up on the 76ers. You're going to be forced to play Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Danny Green, some combination of like Thibault, Korkmaz. I mean, you're going to be loading up in the spot if both those guys are out. Now, if one plays and the other doesn't, if Harris is out and Embiid does play, he's been smashing. He's been absolutely smashing without Harris. And the thing with Harris is, you look at their offense. He's their second best chance of scoring, like by far. And he can do it on his own. He doesn't need help to score. So like him being out has been a big deal this year for Embiid's purposes. Now if Embiid's out, Harris is in. Harris is a phenomenal player. You're going to have to play him. So it's a very interesting situation for DFS purposes. It's a 7 p.m. Eastern game. We're going to have all the news, prior to the slate locking. So it's just something to obviously monitor throughout the day. But this is a spot where, you might want to pounce on this, the spread as soon as we get this news, if the books are slow to react, because it's, kind of game-changing stuff, really. You're talking about some of the biggest names involved in this game.
Yeah, I mean, and if there's a game that pretty much epitomizes why you need to be watching the show that you guys do that runs all the way up to lock, it's this game, because we have so many moving parts in this game, and right now there's so many different variables on how it could turn out depending on who's announced in or out. So obviously don't necessarily want to place our bets right now, but it's great to get your thoughts and kind of see where we're leaning. So when we do get the news, we're ready to pounce, and we're not struck with indecision. So this next game, I think we have a better idea of who's going to play. I didn't see too much on the injury report for this one. It's the Utah Jazz, who hottest team in the league, although they did drop one to Miami there on Friday night, which we were quite happy about because AP and I were both on that game. They bounced back against Orlando, covered the spread, and we were on that as well. So I feel like we've got a good handle on the Jazz. Now they're laying 7 against the New Orleans Pelicans team that, while they're playing better, the results don't really show it. They're 3-7 of their last 10, although they're playing much better basketball. So to the eye test, you see that they're getting where they want to be. Still, they're only 14-19 against the spread, going against a 22-7 Jazz team who's 25-8 against the spread. So when they win, they usually cover. They're laying 7 here against the Pelicans. That number seemed good to me. When I ran my model this morning, it came out to 6.5. So I was pretty close to just laying off it. What did you think of this game?
Yeah, I mean, if I were last night, before these spreads came out, and you said, what's this going to be? I would have been right in this range too, 6, 7, 8, somewhere right in that range. It just seems like a very fair line. I thought you just put it best with the Pelicans. They're getting a lot of buzz about how well they're playing. They're playing well on offense. They're playing a fast-paced game. They're putting up points. That's what people like to see. So that's why everyone's talking about the Pelicans looking better. Yes, they're looking better on offense. It's not correlating to them winning basketball games, unfortunately. So, I mean, in terms of the spread here, the 7 seems fair. I have no lean one way or the other. The total, 236. Total is 236 because of what we just both said. Like Pelicans are playing better offensive basketball. That's why the total's way up there. I mean, 236 is a big number. You're talking about a Jazz team also. Like if they ever in these games, if they do get these big leads, I mean, they do a good job of maybe, slowing it down a little. So I'd probably go the under if I was looking for a play here in this game. I don't think I'd touch the spread. I'd lean under that 236 number. If the Jazz get control of this game, I just don't see the Pelicans scoring enough to get all the way up to that 236. In terms of DFS, the Jazz have been a team that Tony and I have talked about, Big T and I have talked about on the shows a lot. When they're at full strength, it's not a team you want to be on for DFS because they have so many options. You got Conley, Mitchell, Bogdanovich, O'Neal, Gobert, Clarkson, Ingles, Favorite. I mean, they have 8 guys that are productive on the court fantasy-wise, and there's just not enough to go around to kind of, fulfill those salaries. So when the Jazz are at full strength, which they are tonight, I mean, this is a team that I've mostly been off for DFS purposes, and honestly, most of us that run Pure Sports have, and it's worked out quite well because, like I said, I mean, they have so many guys that are productive that there's just not enough to go around. Yes, here and there, these guys are going to have games that get there and, they might hurt you a little bit. But for the overwhelming majority of the season, it hasn't been the case. So the Jazz are a good team to fade on the slate. On the Pelican side, it's just a tough spot here against the Jazz. And the prices now are coming up. Zion's been playing really well. I mean, part of the reason why they've looked better on offense is because of what Zion's been doing. The price is now starting to catch up. He's $9K on DraftKings. 3 weeks ago, we were paying $8K for him. So you're paying this elevated price tag in a poor matchup, not something you should be looking to do for DFS purposes. Brandon Ingram, same thing. Price is starting to come up a little bit. This is a tougher matchup. Probably won't be looking to him. JJ Redick is questionable in this game. JJ Redick's been dog shit basically this season, so that really doesn't do much for fantasy purposes. I mean, maybe a slight boost to Josh Hart, who's had some pretty solid games. He slowed down a little bit, but he had a 40-point game, a 43 fantasy point game 2-3 weeks ago. So, overall, this game's a good fade for DFS, which is kind of weird because we're looking at this big total, 236 number. I mean, that's typically a spot you look to load up, but you have some other factors here. You have a Jazz team that's fully healthy, and when the Jazz are fully healthy, they have a lot of bodies. You have a Pelicans team that not the greatest matchup here against the Jazz, and their price tags are going up because they have been effective on offense. So despite the big total, it's probably going to be mostly a fade for DFS purposes tonight.
All right. I think that was a great breakdown from DFS purposes. If I were to go ahead and attack this game from a betting perspective and I had to make one bet, you know what I would go ahead and do is I would go ahead and just take the Jazz team total over. Then I don't have to worry about the Pelicans keeping up. Right, and the Jazz shoot so well from three, and the Pelicans just give up threes left and right. So it just seems to me like I feel a lot safer about them getting there, and I'm thinking it's at like 121 right now.
Yeah.
I feel a lot safer about them getting there, even though it seems like that's a high total, than worrying about the full game getting there. So I think that's the way that I'm going to go ahead and attack this game from a betting perspective. And I think, you make some great points on why it almost seems counterintuitive, but a total of 236, you might not have very many of these guys on the roster. So I love to hear the way that you're thinking through these things and how these aren't, we don't, just plug and play like, oh, high total, load the game up. We always got to look at the situation, and the Jazz, basically doing a great job of being a team, right, and distributing the ball so well. So let's go ahead and talk about a team that I'm still not over the way that they melted down last Friday night, and that's the Chicago Bulls. I had them +7 against the Phoenix Suns. I don't know why this loss is haunting me so much, but for some reason I can't get over the way that they played at the end of the game with all those turnovers, all those. Oh, it was just so bad. Now they get a chance to, kind of come back, get that taste out of their mouth because their game against the Raptors, I think it was yesterday, was canceled. They take on the Denver Nuggets, who I know that we'll be talking about from DFS purposes because Jokic has just been, he always gives you a bang for a buck there. So it looks like Denver right now is laying 5 on a total of 226. Boy, I like Chicago, but it's hard for me to trust them after what I saw last Friday night. What do you think?
Yeah, it's just two teams that are kind of hard to trust. I mean, honestly, you look at the Nuggets, and Nuggets last season were, one of the best teams in the NBA. This season, they just have something where they're playing down to their competition, and they're just not playing solid basketball from start to finish. Yes, there's been flashes where they've looked dominant. Yes, there's been flashes where they look shitty. It's a tough team for betting because they're playing down to their competition. On the Bulls side, they've looked a little bit better lately, but the problem is it's been mostly against like pretty bad teams. Like they beat the Timberwolves, they beat the Rockets, they beat the Kings, they beat the Pistons. Those are like 4 of the worst teams in the NBA. And those are teams that if you just have some talent, which the Bulls definitely they have talent. Kobe White's really good. Levine's really good. This Patrick Williams guy looks promising. Wendell Carter Jr. has looked promising as well. That's enough to beat some of those really bad teams. So I'm not going to give the Bulls a ton of credit here. If I was going anywhere, I'd bank on the Nuggets, getting back to the Nuggets at some point and probably go there. The total, I could kind of see this one going over, to be honest with you, 226.5. I mean, it's like an average number now in the NBA, but there's offensive weapons on both sides that I think could propel this over. So probably lean the Nuggets a little bit and the over. In terms of DFS, I mean, you touched on it. Like Jokic is on a different level this season. He's been absolutely phenomenal. You look, 58, 56, 61, just a safe source of fantasy points. And this matchup here against the Bulls is a good one. I mean, Wendell Carter's been playing good on the offensive end. Wendell Carter Jr., not a great defensive player. Jokic should be able to have his way in this matchup. So really like him. Michael Porter Jr. has been playing well. Will Barton's going to play a ton of minutes. The results are up and down. Jamal Murray's a guy I've been on in tournaments lately. Just big upside, like massive upside for sure. He's got a 68 spot. That was last week. He has a 55 spot against the Wizards. Big upside. The price tag's up there, and people aren't going to pay it, but he can definitely pay off this big price tag. So I'm going to be on him in tournaments. Low owned guy. No one's really going to be on him. On the Bulls side, the problem here, Levine, the price tag is now up there, 9.5, and it's kind of the same situation as when we talked about Vucevic. Been playing good basketball, has big upside, but he's getting too close to those top tier guys. He's getting too close to the James Harden. He's getting too close to Jokic. He's just getting too close in price to those other guys where he's just more volatile player. So I'll probably be off of him. Wendell Carter does still have a pretty good price tag, 5.8K on DK. The issue with him going up against Jokic. Jokic does a good job of drawing fouls. Carter's a guy that tends to get into foul trouble. So a little bit risky, but I mean, the premier play here is clearly Jokic with Jamal Murray as like a low-owned GPP tournament target.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring Wendell Carter Jr. I think that sometimes he's miscast as a small ball five. I think he can be used as a small ball five against other teams that play small. But then you see him out there, against the Vukovic's and against the Jokic's, and he just looks too small, and they don't have a pivot, though. So then he has to go out there, and I think a lot of times he's getting almost a bad rap, getting misplayed, because I think that he can be a small ball five, but to have him just be the five every night, night in and night out, I think they're putting him in a tough spot. And you just go to the Bulls, and they really just don't have a lot of good defenders overall. Against the right size players, Carter Jr. is good. Are we gonna have Otto Porter Jr. tonight? Will he be out there?
I don't see him on the injury report.
I see him as doubtful.
Doubtful, yeah. Okay, no, he's out. He's been out for a while, so yeah, he's still out. Yeah, they just don't have him on there because he's been out for so long. So yeah, he'll still be out.
He's a player that I think that he's going to mean more to them when he comes back than he would just in general, like for a player his skill level. But it's just what he brings is just what they need so bad. And I love their backcourt, especially from a DFS perspective. I'm talking about the Bulls now, but they just can't defend. I mean, it's just a bad matchup. Like they need. Both of them are scorers that really don't defend that well, and I mean, they need to make a trade with the Pelicans, right? They need Bledsoe or Lonzo next to one of these guys to kind of give them a little more balance. And I don't want to leave this game because I don't think we can talk about Denver without bringing up Michael Porter Jr. So I just like to get your thoughts on him before we move on to the next game.
Playing some solid basketball, and Malone just. I feel like Malone takes out his frustrations on Michael Porter Jr. for some damn reason. But when he's not in the doghouse, he's a phenomenal player. I think, he had 20 and 10. That was mostly in the first half too, because it was a blowout, right? Yeah, it ended up being they didn't get their full run, but yeah, it is 20 and 10, 18 and 10, 12 and 10, doing a phenomenal job on the boards. He's in the DFS conversation tonight, and I mean, he's just a promising young player, and I do really like him. Better play on FanDuel opposed to DraftKings. The price tag's a little bit better. Same as Kobe White. I wanted to mention him too. Still has a really nice FanDuel price tag at like 5.7K. So I think he's in the conversation over there.
Yeah. Speaking of Porter Jr., so this is a small sample size, but the last three games, when Porter, Murray, and Jokic are on the court together, they've had a net rating of 22. So it seems like they're finally getting it together. I think Murray's finally healthy, and Porter, he's still going to have his ups and downs, but when he does play well, that can be quite the trio. So that'll be a fun one to like tonight. And you like Denver and the over there. I kind of like the Bulls, but I can't bet them, so stay away. And I kind of like the over, too. Worry about Denver's slow pace, but Chicago's defense is so bad, it should make up for it. Next game we got, you've talked about this guy a couple times when you're talking about studs, so I'm sure we'll bring it out in DFS. That's James Harden and the Brooklyn Nets heading to San Antonio, another one where the home team is catching 5. Now, San Antonio's won 3 of their last 4, even being shorthanded on their roster. Do you have news as far as when they're going to get all those guys back? I still see Gay, Devin Vassell, Weatherspoon, Keldon Johnson, and Derek White out. I mean, boy, talk about a patchwork team, and they're getting it done.
Yeah, Keldon Johnson. It sounded like he did have a chance to play. They said he went through shoot around or something, but he's going to be out for conditioning reasons. So it's still going to leave them pretty thin. I mean, they still have about 7 of their normal guys. LaMarcus Aldridge has been coming off the bench. Obviously, Patty Mills off the bench too, but definitely very very productive pieces. But yeah, they've been playing well, and they draw this Nets team who has also been playing pretty well, finally getting their shit together a little bit. Obviously, no Durant on the Nets side. Um, this 5 number is, man, it's a tough one for me because the Nets have been playing well. They're obviously more talented in the fact that they have Harden, they have Kyrie. I'd probably maybe I'd probably lean the Nets just because I think I think Harden and Irving are probably enough to beat these guys, but I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't feel very strongly about it. The total is obviously up there, 234. I think that's pretty accurate. The Spurs are a team that typically will let their opponents dictate the pace. And, the Nets are a team that are going to go ahead and push it all season long, obviously with Harden, with Irving, with KD, and then you throw Steve Nash in the mix. They're going to continue to push the pace. And like I said, with the Spurs, they typically let their opponent dictate how fast the game goes. They're fine getting into track meets with teams. So that's what I think I see. Maybe I lean the over now that I'm thinking about it a little bit. I could see this being a very high scoring game. I mean, like I said, the Nets are definitely going to push it, and the Spurs, they go with what their opponent's doing. So I actually like the over now that I think I just talked myself into it, 234.5. In terms of DFS, the obvious plays here are James Harden, Kyrie Irving. The one piece though, Jeff Green is questionable, I see, and then TLC is questionable too. But the problem with the Nets, man, when you got guys like Kyrie and you got guys like a guy like James Harden out there, it's really hard to see consistency from these secondary pieces. I do have some interest in Joe Harris and DFS, more on FanDuel than DraftKings. The price is better on the Spurs side for DFS purposes. Prices are all pretty accurate, to be honest with you. Lonnie, let me see what Lonnie Walker is on FanDuel. On DK, they got him up there. He's going to have to play minutes tonight, especially with Keldon Johnson now ruled out as well. On FanDuel, he is, 4.2K. So I think he's in the conversation on FanDuel at 4.2K. He'd be a really cheap play at shooting guard. So he's definitely in the conversation there. Curious to see if they continue to start Trey Lyles over Aldridge. I mean, with that scenario going on, it really takes both those guys out of play. If LaMarcus Aldridge, gets back in the starting lineup and sees his 30 minutes, he's going to be a DFS play at some point. But right now, that's not the case. He is very cheap on FanDuel though, at 5.6K. 25 minutes, 23 minutes, really limiting his minutes, which limits the upside, and we definitely want the upside. So he's a fringe play on FanDuel, not in play on DK. But really the two strongest plays here are Harden, Kyrie, and then if for some reason Jeff Green and TLC are ruled out, you can start to take a look at these secondary pieces, Joe Harris, Bruce Brown. But, in terms of the spread and the total, I think I just talked myself into the over.
Yeah, I like the over too. And I'll tell you what, I like Brooklyn, and it's almost situational because the numbers say that this game is about right at -5, right? But I think because of the loss that they took against Dallas, I think it's like getting cold water poured on you. I think we expect them focus right off the start, which makes me much more comfortable about taking this team to cover. I don't think that they're going to lay 2 eggs in a row. Obviously, they're feeling pretty good after that road trip. A lit down spot was inevitable, so hopefully this shakes them back in there. And I like Brooklyn here too as well. So that one should be a fun one. We'll see how the Spurs are able to take on this challenge at home. This next game that we're going to be talking about, boy, talk about a poor performance we saw yesterday from the Houston Rockets. They're hosting the Cleveland Cavaliers. I guess all I could really say about the Rockets yesterday, they went 4 from 45 from behind the three-point arc. That might be, other than like in the 80s, maybe when a team went 0 for 3, like the worst I've ever seen anyone.
Yeah, that was bad, man. That was painful to watch. I mean, that might have been one of the worst performances I've seen from an NBA team this season.
Yeah, I mean, it was bad. If you had a Memphis ticket, you were feeling great, right? I mean, I flipped the game on. It was on for like 5-10 minutes. I said I'm done with this.
Yeah.
I'm not. There
I
was
had a
nothing for me even to watch like from a tape study perspective.
Yeah, I was grinding that game out because I was heavy on the Rockets for DFS purposes
Well, that must have
because
hurt.
that was a painful one. Eric Gordon, Daniel House, the one guy that did all right is this Patton guy, and I'm curious to see if he starts again today because he has some promise, and if there's no reason for them to not give him minutes at this point, so I'm curious to see if he starts again.
Yeah, obviously this team, talk about most valuable. Christian Wood making a case that he's the most valuable to this team because they look like a G League team with him out. That being said, inexplicably this opened at 4.5. I see it bet down all the way to -1 right now,
Yeah,
which seems to be the right way. I mean, I would even lay like a point or two with Houston. They played the other. It was last week, right? Jared Allen got 26 and 18.
yeah.
So I think we're both, we'll keep it quick on the betting side. We're both on Cleveland. You can't back Houston at this point. You're not going to back Houston until you see something from them. So
Yeah.
let's check out the DFS. Do you think Jared Allen's able to replicate this? And will you putting him
Yes.
in your lineup tonight?
He's definitely in the conversation. The price tag has come up, but just to touch on the betting thing real quick, like I got on that 4.5 this morning, and
It's just unbelievable. I mean,
yeah, it's just a really bad number, and we always want to look for letdown spots or bounce back spots, and historically you'd say, okay, the Rockets played so bad last night, they're going to bounce back tonight. I don't think you can say that about the Rockets. I mean, for a couple of reasons. I mean, they looked so bad last night. And then you have the thing with Oladipo where they offered him the 2-year contract and he essentially turned it down. He told them that he doesn't want to sign an extension there. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in Houston right now, and I just don't see it getting any better. And we have injury news. Like, is Wall going to play or not? I mean, they said
I don't think he will. He hasn't played a back-to-back yet this year, has he?
Yeah, but he hasn't. But there was a quote from the coach saying, "Oh, his minutes were limited yesterday, so maybe he will play." I think he does. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me. He actually looked worse than anyone on the team last night. Like he was awful last night. So I don't think it really matters. I like the Cavs a ton. I like the money line. I just like the Cavs to win this game. So yeah, give me the 4.5. I bet the money line this morning to feel really, really good about this spot. Obviously it's coming down. The 4.5 number that we got this morning is no longer there. I don't care. To me, they're going to win this game. So I'm loading up on the Cavs. I'll probably put a little more on it as well. I feel really good about this spot. In terms of DFS, Jared Allen, like you said, he has been playing some really, really good basketball. The price tag has come up a little bit. It's going to keep people off him for DFS. Great tournament option. Darius Garland's another guy, just a ton of minutes. I mean, these guys are playing so many minutes. 36, 35, 38, 42. 35, 42. That was overtime on Saturday, but so take 5 away, 37 minutes. Just playing a ton of minutes shooting. Same as Colin Sexton. I mean, these are guys that you want to definitely consider tonight in DFS. On the Rocket side, we need to see the injury situation. If John Wall is out, then we're going to be looking to House. We're going to be looking. Eric Gordon's questionable too in this game, so I mean they could be pretty damn thin. So we really need the news on that. The one guy I do feel good about either way is Justin Patton. He started last night, looked pretty good. They just have no reason to not give this guy minutes. Like if they're not giving him minutes, they're just doing the organization a disservice. He needs to be out there, get the experience. He is the minimum price on FanDuel, and I think similar on DK. So I think he's a strong play either way. But in terms of some of these other guys, you really need the injury news. We need to know if Wall's playing. We need to know if Gordon's playing. And we might not have this at lock. It's a 9 p.m. Eastern game, so that's 2 hours after the slate lock. So we probably won't have this at 7 Eastern.
Yeah, and those are always tough to navigate around. Sometimes can keep you off the game altogether, but I know that some of you more experienced guys plan your pivots depending on, if this is out, this is exactly what we're going to pivot to. So you're not caught, with your pants down when someone gets rolled out altogether. And it's funny that you brought up Oladipo. I kind of have this feeling that he's going to sign one of those contracts that ends up being regrettable in the offseason.
Yeah.
I think someone is going to give him it, but I think it's, going to be like, two guys that we talk about, Westbrook and Wall, where, it ends up just being an albatross for the team. So,
I agree.
I don't necessarily blame him. I do think that someone will mess up and give him that money, but I do think that at this point of his career, he's lacked the explosiveness and he can't stay on the court. I think someone's going to overvalue him. just off the name, and really just off that 1 year in Indiana. I mean, no other time has he really shown to be, an all-star top 24 level player. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out in the offseason. I'm surprised that Houston didn't keep Karis LeVert. But regardless, we're on lockstep here tonight for the side. And I don't even feel like betting the total because I just feel like the
Yeah.
side's so strong. Like,
Yeah.
why would I like take something that's more of a coin flip or a 50-50 when I got, to me, my favorite look on the board,
Yes.
is to just keep fading the Rockets until they show some sort of sign of life. And that probably will not be until Christian Wood returns. So
Yes.
we'll be keeping an eye on that. Now, our last game of the evening, the Charlotte Hornets. Boy, what a victory last night. I live in Sacramento. I'm a Kings fan, and I want a top 5 pick. So I was rooting for the Hornets. I can't believe they pulled it off. I mean, the number of things that had to happen. I mean, it was almost like a comedy show of how to blow a game. But regardless, so Charlotte's coming off that victory. Now they're catching 7.5 against the Portland team, who's, boy, I mean, it's like they don't look like an 18-14 team, right? They don't look 17-15 against the spread. I'm surprised this team is doing so well. So I always have problems. My model always tells me to fade them. So it's almost like I can't even use it because it never tells me to take Portland. But here, I think I might go with the model and grab the 7.5. Of course, I'm a little worried about the fatigue. That was an up and down game, and probably like an emotional game too. We'll see if they can get back up for tonight. Now, I think the injury news is going to be, kind of key here again. What do you expect? Do you expect to see Hayward or Zeller, Dan? I guess I'm not as worried about Zeller, but I think that Hayward would be necessary. And if I saw he's in, then I pull the trigger on the 7.5.
Yeah, they just updated before we came on, and the official tags are Gordon Hayward and Zeller are doubtful, and then Devontae Graham will be out as well. So it's basically the exact same situation that we had last night. But I agree with you. I still think I would take the 7.5. Like, I just don't think. Yes, Portland has been playing well. They have had some big wins here. I just don't think they're better than. I don't think they're 7.5 points better than many teams in the NBA. And the Hornets have guys that can get it done. From a DFS perspective, assuming all those guys are out, which they're listed as doubtful. They're listed as doubtful yesterday and didn't play. I assume they don't play. We're going to be loading up here again tonight for DFS purposes because they only have they're going to play essentially 9 guys. Bismack Biyombo has looked so bad lately. They're really cutting back his minutes. So you're talking 8 guys that are going to fill all this. The guy that's looked really good is Malik Monk. He's playing some solid basketball. Just a guy he's a hooper. He can just go out there and get buckets. So I think he's a strong play for DFS purposes. PJ Washington, just a monster game last night.
Yeah.
Just got whatever he wanted the entire game. His ownership will be up because of that big performance last night. But, I'm willing to go right back to him. The guy that really disappointed from a DFS perspective was Terry Rozier. Like, he just looked out of it. So I guess there is some risk on a back-to-back, but it's going to lower his ownership because of that performance. I think you can go back to him. And then LaMelo Ball, obviously a phenomenal play. He looks so good, by the way. I mean, he looks phenomenal. He's going to be a stud in this league, and better price on FanDuel, but certainly in play on DraftKings as well. On the Portland side, Damian Lillard is a guy I'll probably be looking to spend up on tonight. Really good spot here, obviously, against the Hornets. We got the big team total for the Trailblazers. Team totals, right around 120, a little less than 120. That's a big number. Enes Kanter, I believe, is in play. Better play on FanDuel and DraftKings. He's got like a 6.3 tag on FanDuel, 7.2 on DK. But really, this one's all about Lillard. And then, you're going to want to load up on some of these Hornets guys because they're just going to be forced to play a ton of minutes. And like you said, that's where the fatigue comes into play a little bit here because they all played a ton of minutes last night. And if this game stays close tonight, they're going to have to play those minutes again here tonight. So the blowout risk it's there because of the fatigue. But like I said, I just don't think Portland's necessarily good enough to put teams away. I mean, yes, Lillard can get hot and just end it. But I think it stays closer. I mean, their core is young guys. It's not like we're talking veterans for the Hornets. You're talking LaMelo. You're talking Rozier, PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, Malik Monk. It's all younger guys. I mean, they'll be ready to go tonight. So I feel good about the 7.5. Taking the Hornets with the 7.5. The total 231 seems like a fair number, but for DFS, you're going to want to load up on the Hornets tonight. And then Lillard, I think, is a very, very strong spend.
Yeah, I think you make a bunch of great points. Just to piggyback off a couple, we talk about the fatigue. Teams on a back-to-back this year are actually 58% against the spread, so much better than usual. That used to be, a target spot, and I was kind of theorizing about it this morning with my friend during our quick workout, and I was saying, without the fans in the crowd, I wonder if people are just getting less tired because think about like that win last night that Charlotte had. I mean, if the place was packed with Sacramento fans, I think it would have been even more tiring, been more of an exhilarating win. But the business-like nature of it with no fans in the crowd, in most places, I think maybe is making the fatigue a lot less, especially from an emotional perspective for these players. They don't get to hush the crowd or get them going, whichever way, for the home or away. And I think that has shown us less fatigue. So I've been less afraid of attacking these teams on a back-to-back. And a couple other things that you talked about, Washington, right? So when I first saw, they had a career night, right? I chalked that up to going against Marvin Bagley, who I consider to be one of the worst defenders in the league. And really, it's almost like Jahlil Okafor. If he doesn't get his defense, that's what's going to keep him out of rotation, because the offense is there, the rebounding's there. He's just so bad defensively. But then I looked, and Washington actually put up good numbers when he's matched up against Holmes too. So I got to give him more credit for his performance. It wasn't just a Bagley's bad performance. He actually played great. So I, give credit to Washington for that one. And then I just had one more question about a guy that I was thinking about putting in my lineup, but I wanted to ask you first. And that's Gary Trent Jr. is only 5,500 on FanDuel and 6,000 on DraftKings.
Yeah, better play on FanDuel than DraftKings. It's just tough. More of a tournament play. I mean, definitely a guy that you can plug into the deeper field GPPs. I mean, he is playing a ton of minutes, but the production he's just been teasing just a little off, like 25, 26 fantasy points. If you're going to pay the 5.566, we want to see a guy that can get into the mid 30s. He hasn't really shown that lately, but this matchup is good. He's going to get the minutes. I don't hate it for tournaments. I think for tournaments you can definitely look to him.
All right. Well, that wraps up all of our games, and now we do the segment that we end the show with, and that's just our best bet, a side, prop, or total. Go ahead and give out your best bet for everybody watching.
Yeah, I mean, the best bet is I think it's going to be a consensus for you and I, and it's going to be the Cavs. I mean, it's just wrong. It's just, to me, it's not a right number. Yes, the Houston could come out and win this game. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibilities. I like the Cavs a ton in this spot. I think, Jared Allen, Sexton, Garland, they all have big games. The Rockets, I think Rockets are going to have a lot of issues moving forward, and I just don't see why they're favored. That's the obvious one that we both like. I'll throw the bonus one in, and it was one that I kind of fell on as we were talking about, and it's that Nets Spurs over. So those are the two.
Well, I'll throw both those in the Discord for the Run Pure Bets members to go ahead and check out in case they missed the show. Boy, I'm going back and forth between two of them. And when I did this yesterday, they both cashed, but the second one was the Hornets and got lucky. The first one was the Knicks, and I could definitely say that it was the right pick. But the ones I'm going between is so if I knew Philadelphia was healthy, right, I'd go ahead and make that my best bet right now. I'd lay the 4.5. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'll just hope that they're going to play. I really want both of them in there. I think that they're so important, though. So I hate to give it out so early because if one of them's out, I'm only going to have to lay 2.5. And the other one is Charlotte, just because I think that 7.5 number is too much. My model told me that was the biggest wrong number, and I'm not as afraid of the fatigue for the others. But I'll go ahead and make it Philly. I'll make it Philly minus 4.5. Assume that both of them play, because if they do, I think that's a slam dunk spot. That should be minus 7. And I think maybe the reason we're getting value on that number right now is the uncertainty. So did you have anything else that you wanted to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, back up that 76ers call. They've done this with Embiid a ton throughout the years, where they just list him questionable when he really doesn't have an injury, and then he ends up playing. So It sounded really good for Tobias Harris to play. I lean now that I do think the more I think about it, that Embiid does play too. So I like that. I like that 5 number. If both those guys are ruled in and then Brogdon's ruled out, that's the guy that just missed. You're talking, you got some nice value in that. So I do like that 76ers play as well.
All right. So there we go. We got the 76ers, the Cavaliers, and the over and the Spurs Nets. And I'll tell you what, one thing I've learned this year, you can never go wrong taking an over in the Nets game, right?
Yeah.
If you wake up, 5 minutes before the game start and you don't have time to handicap, just take the over in the Nets, right? It's
always
been a
have
pretty good bet so far.
Always have a chance.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Everyone that's been watching, please head over to runpurebets.com. That's where you're going to get all the bets from the bet side. You're going to get the picks from JJ, from the Sports Keg, from HTP, from Score with D, from Tyler, from Joey Work, and myself. Of course, you'll get access to the Discord, the articles, the behind the paywall shows, especially the live shows where Jay's been absolutely killing it. And then, of course, Run Pure Sports, what Hoop does mainly. That's going to give you the access to all the cores, right? You get AP's core, you're going to get Hoop's core, you're going to get Big T's core, JSU's core, and for the different sites, FanDuel, Yahoo, DraftKings, wherever you want to play, so you can move your money around and attack the slate that you like the best. I always say, go ahead, get them both. We got the bundle. It's $100 a month rather than paying, $60 for us or $80 for them. Get them both, right? Get them both. See what we have to offer. You'll be in the Discord. You'll be talking with us and other members who are, as devoted to this as we are. You get so much great information in there. So please head on over to runpurebets.com or runpuresports.com. Check out what we have to offer. Hoop, thank you for joining me today. For the rest of the week, tomorrow we'll have Travis Mangone and JSU. Wednesday will be Big T and JSU. And Hoop will be back on Thursday, and we'll be trying to maybe get one other person in there with us. Schedule is permitted to lead us into the All-Star break. So thank you guys, everyone, for joining us, and Run Pure.